Who may enter Canada? Before I answer this question, please subscribe to our channel and enable notifications. When it comes to the relationship between people and Canada, we could potentially divide them into three major groups: Canadian citizens and registered Indians. The second group are permanent residents of Canada, and the third group are foreign nationals. First, let's talk about Canadian citizens. Canadian citizens are those people who become citizen either by birth or through naturalization. When you become a Canadian citizen, then under Section 6, Sub 1 of Constitution Act 1982, you have the right to enter Canada. In fact, this right is an unqualified right. It means that all you need to do is to prove to a border services officer that you are a citizen of Canada. In those situations, they will allow you to enter Canada. Section 19 Sub 1 of Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, or IRPA, says an officer needs to be convinced that a person is either a Canadian citizen or a registered Indian to allow them to enter Canada. And just to let you know, registered Indian under the laws of Canada refers to certain Indigenous people of Canada who have the status Indian. What about permanent residents of Canada? A permanent resident of Canada is somebody who has the right to enter Canada under Section 27 Sub 1 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. This section, however, says that you will lose this right if you lose your permanent residency. Normally, people lose their permanent residency either because of inadmissibility issues or because they do not meet the residency obligations in terms of the number of days they have to stay in Canada. Also, if you look at Section 19 Sub 2 of the Immigration Act, it emphasizes that a border services officer needs to allow a person to enter Canada if they are convinced that that person has the status of a permanent resident. What about foreign nationals? Sometimes a foreign national is somebody who has gone through the process of becoming a permanent resident of Canada, but they are still not a permanent resident of Canada. If that person is already inside Canada and their case is approved, they can do virtual landing or they can go to a port of entry for flag polling and become permanent residents of Canada. But if that person is outside Canada, depending on their nationality, they may receive an ETA, a COPR, or a TRV. And COPR is a paper that says confirmation of permanent residency. They travel to Canada, and at a port of entry, they land in Canada and they become a permanent resident of Canada. Under paragraph 21A of the Immigration Act, a border services officer will review their application at the port of entry, and if they are convinced they meet the requirements of permanent residency, they allow them to land and become permanent residents of Canada. Some other foreign nationals include TRV holders, ETA holders, work permit holders, or study permit holders. Those people may enter Canada. They have the privilege of entering Canada if they meet the requirements of paragraph 21B of the Act. Under that paragraph, border services officer needs to make sure that that person meets all necessary requirements of the kind of document they have, and also they won't overstay in Canada. To emphasize on this matter, under Section 180 of the Immigration Regulations, it says that the officer needs to make sure a TRV holder or visitor visa holder needs to show that at the time of application they met all the requirements of a visit visa, and also right now at the port of entry they still meet the requirements of a visit visa. Sometimes people decide to cross the border of Canada irregularly. What does that mean? We normally have a port of entry for crossing the border. Port of entry is a place that there are officers available. They can examine people who want to enter Canada, and if they are convinced they meet the requirements, they will allow them to enter Canada. Of course, we have ports of entry at international airports, we have land crossings, we have train crossings or rail crossings, we have seaports, etc. for this purpose. If a person decides to cross the border between the United States and Canada not through a port of entry, then this is irregular crossing. In those situations, if the police apprehends that person, they may remove them from Canada. However, many of those people who cross the border irregularly, they file for refugee in Canada. Thank you very much for watching this video. I know this video included references to the Immigration Act and regulations, but I wanted to create an educational video and at the same time show you that the immigration process to Canada is supported by laws and regulations behind the scene. You may not know them, but they do exist. My name is Al Parsai. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I teach immigration consulting at Ashton College, and I'm the author of 88 tips on immigration to Canada. Please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and enable notifications. See you soon.